Hello, Jordan. How are you?
How are you?
I'm great. I'll probably give about 2 more minutes, just so I know people might have been leaving the introduction room to make sure that they make it to this session.
Sure, sounds awesome. You can hear me and see me
Yes.
perfectly?
Perfectly. Yes. At first, I was worried. I'm like, I only see myself, but glad you just did it. Yes, absolutely. Now, where are you stationed right now?
Right now I'm actually in Arizona, so it's quite
Okay.
early, 10 a.m. over here.
Okay. Well, good morning. Right. Good morning to you. No better person to spend the morning with then. All right. Okay, well, I see about 67 viewers in here. So wait for a few more seconds and then we'll get started. While we are waiting, please do know that there's a chat. We will open this floor up to Q&A from the chat by the end of Jordan and I's Fire chat. So please be sure to type in your questions. You don't have to wait till the end. We'll be sure to get to them. Okay? All right. Well, let's get started, Jordan. So good afternoon, everyone. If you're still deciding how to pay for college for yourself, for your child, for your niece or your nephew, for your grandchild, or you just want to learn about esports today, we've got some great insights for you today. But first up, we have Jordan Zietz. Jordan is the founder and CEO of All-Star Esports League, one of the largest high school esports leagues in the world. Jordan is currently a student at Stanford, although today he's in Arizona, where his intended major, I don't know if this has changed yet, is management science and engineering. And Jordan, you started your first company in the 7th grade, right? Out of this Young Entrepreneurs Academy chapter. After placing third out of over 2,000 students at the national level of American Small Business Summit, you were invited to meet Walmart CEO and executives and present on their Saturday morning meetings. You've also competed in an Innovate South Florida competition where you placed first overall. And you're a mentor with MIT Launch Student Entrepreneurship Group for the past 3 years. Wow, like what a resume, Jordan. And as a professor at the University of South Florida and as a mother of 3 young children, I'm so excited to learn from and with you today. So let's get started. So at the ripe age of 18, you found this largest high school esports league in the US. Take us through that story of becoming the founder and the CEO.
Sure, no problem. So I think entrepreneurship is something that's, a possibility and available to everyone. But particularly for me, entrepreneurship quite literally runs in my blood, in that both my parents started their own company. My older sister served as another role model through starting her own company. So it almost seemed inevitable that I would start my own, which I did when I was in 7th grade. So I had a bit of entrepreneurial experience, but then kind of as I had that going along, I also, in my free time, I'd play video games and particularly esports. And I wanted to start a team at my high school just with a few different friends. And we were looking to register for certain leagues until we realized that, it's kind of unrealistic to get a group of 3 or 4 high school students to pay a few $100 each to be able to compete for, no prizing at all. So that in and of itself is the problem. And that's kind of where the entrepreneurial startup mindset kicks in, where I see a problem and I realize that, I can solve this for other people, not just for myself. And that kind of gave me that big push forward in order to start the company and actually create the league as the first completely free high school esports league.
So a lot of things to unpack there. And I want to go back to seeing, like you grew up in this family, this entrepreneurial spirit. What did that mean? Like, could you take a risk? And if you fell all that far, you had a safety net. Like, what did that entrepreneurial spirit teach you?
Well, for one, I think it's the environment in the household too, because especially the first thing that comes to mind is when we eat dinner together as a family. A lot of families, I imagine, would put on the TV or talk about their days, which we do, but a lot of our conversations end up evolving towards, I've got this strategy I've been trying to implement for my business this week, and you've been trying to do that. How have things been going? What's your new marketing move you've got planned? So it's almost like we're all mentors for each other, and they always had the habit of treating us like adults. And so not only would we receive mentorship from them, but I like to think that we also offer great input and creative ideas and strategies that they're able to implement as well. So just having that environment of always being able to discuss with people who are also in the field, whether it be a mentor or even family at this point, is incredibly valuable.
Oh, absolutely. Like the open environment, the level of trust, and the different viewpoints, so important. Let's also talk about, so you said this free All-Star Esports. What does that mean, free?
So quite simply, I mean, high school students can't be expected to pay insane sums of money in order to compete. I think just like most sports, that was one of the largest barriers for esports, in that if I wanted to go play football for my high school right now, all I have to do is walk onto the football team, and I have before. I'm not expected to pay team fees. Maybe if I want my own equipment, but even then, the school comes equipped. So how come if I wanted to start an esports team, I'd have to pay hundreds of dollars out of pocket, or try and pitch to the school to be able to allocate stuff like that? And so instead, we structured All-Star Esports League to be able to be completely free to the students, thanks in part both to our league sponsors and partners, and also other, methods of revenue generating strategy that help us avoid having to actually charge an entry fee for students and for teams.
Well, thank you for that, because, pay and access is sometimes the biggest barrier of entry, so truly appreciate that. So tell me when you realize, I've read some things, doing my research on you, Jordan. When did you realize esports was a real thing and it was a business?
I've always taken video games more seriously than a lot of people, given that I've played them and then I've kind of taken them a little seriously, and I even wanted to start my own high school team. But I have to say, just seeing the scope of esports event, I mean, even this summit included, this is a business summit surrounding esports, and it's absolutely massive, and the scale of both the speakers and the people involved here is fantastic and is representative of kind of what hooked me in the first place, which was being able to watch them fill up Madison Square Garden for esports tournaments, or the HyperX Vegas. That lends legitimacy to the industry by saying, look, this is a really big thing, and here's the proof of concept. We've got people filling stadiums, and we've got more people watching this online on the live stream than people that watch the NBA Finals. So people really care about esports. In fact, in some instances, more than traditional sports.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is why, last year, the faculty here at the Vinik Sport and Entertainment, we started this esports summit as a way to educate the community and really this entire ecosystem. And Jordan, I must say, last year was the most diverse audience I've ever seen. And that's a breadth of age, a breadth of experience. It was really great to see that in an audience. So talk us through kind of how do you need to educate your stakeholders? Because there is sometimes that's the biggest learning curve when you've walked into a business setting or you've introduced people to this space. What is that education component like?
I think a lot of educating stakeholders in esports becomes reading the audience and being able to tell what matters most to them and what they already know. Because it's very clear, I think, to explain esports to somebody if they know traditional sports, because then you can draw an analogy and say, well, just like you've got the Super Bowl, you've got this big championship event for the All-Star Esports League that happens in the summer. And we've got people going on site in a stadium, so it's just like you'd imagine. Now, let's say they don't have sports experience, but they've got, understanding of the general video game industry. Then you explain it as, we've got this infrastructure to take video games and make them more competitive, just like at first you had football, and then as more recreational sports begin to grow in size, now video games are actually becoming hyper competitive, which allows for this level of competition and for the label of esports. And it's just about finding in each and every one of those instances, how can you properly convey to them the importance and the significance of esports based on what they already know. And if they know nothing, then even explaining it from the ground up isn't that difficult. Esports is competitive video game gaming. And what that allows is for real hyper competition, which is fantastic as an industry for business and also as a fan to watch. It engages people, and it's an incredibly inclusive sport as well, where traditional sports might limit people with physical disabilities. Esports is much more inclusive in that manner.
I love it. So in short, it's not just us professors saying this in the classroom, but know your audience, right? Know your audience and speak to them. Okay. So talking about audiences, right? Today's audience, as President Corral said, are esports enthusiasts, but also we have students, we have parents, we have players, we have faculties, and then business partners. So I want to speak to each of these segments, okay? Let's first start to high school students, right? Very shortly removed from your experience, but also some administrators. Earlier today during the networking time, I was able to meet an athletic director right here in Tampa. So do know we're speaking to the high school students as well as the administrators. So you've experienced many challenges, right? As a young entrepreneur, what insight would you like to share with any aspiring individual, especially those that may be younger when they walk into these rooms?
I think something that's very important, especially with regard to high school students, is learning that failing is okay so long as you get back up and you learn from it. In that, personally, I believe a lot of the education system is constructed in a way where we always give our best, which is fantastic. But then if there's ever an occasion where you're given the opportunity to take a risk, but you might fall, that type of system also encourages people to shy away from that, to avert kind of the pursuit of that path. Whereas instead, being able to throw yourself wholeheartedly into a risk and say, wow, I actually completely failed. That was a miserable failure. It's completely okay, because then it's the equivalent of getting knocked down, but then having the courage to get back up and say, now I know that won't work. That's one more thing I can check off the checklist. And now I have a more narrow niche of what I need to pursue in order to be successful with what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Failing, there are success in our failures. There's lessons learned, right, in those. We just have to get back up, right, and have that courage. Love it. So looking back, is your high school administrators and teachers maybe, how did they support you during this progress, and how could they have supported you better?
I actually think I received fantastic support through my teachers, more so as seeing them as mentors, not even in a business regard, but just in a life in general regard. So I would have, let's say, meetings that I would have to schedule during class, and I would go up to my teachers and say, I'm really sorry, but this is a really important meeting that I've got. I'm going to have to skip class. And it was overall that level of understanding that, and a mutual respect for each other, where they would say, I'll respect what you're doing and I won't mind. I'll let you skip this class on the condition that you in turn respect what I'm doing, and that you'll make an attempt to make up for it, do what you need to do. I don't care how you get the job done, so long as you get it done. In exchange, let me know how I can help you. And they were incredibly open to supporting me, whether they knew something that they could teach me that might help, if there was a concept that I needed for the development of our new software platform, I could learn that through my computer science teacher or anybody in the department, really. And that was super helpful, even if it wasn't on the curriculum, or if some of them didn't even know it yet, because it's quite revolutionary technology we've got going on.
I love that idea of this mutual respect, and also unpacking within there. I appreciate the faculty member, your proactiveness, right? You knew you had a meeting coming up, and so you let your faculty know, right? And what could I do? How can I make this up? So I appreciate that side as well, but definitely the mutual respect, so important. So fortunately, you've really discovered something fun, something that you're passionate about, and you're able also to pursue business opportunities in that. Can you discuss this realization that you had when the business opportunity was available?
For sure. I think there's always this opportunity, almost always available to pursue an opportunity within your passion, should you be creative enough to find it. Meaning that when a lot of people say, I want to make a career, the first thing that comes to mind is either you're developing video games or you're competing, you're the top player at that game and you're getting paid to be a professional esports player. When in reality, it's a much larger industry. Like was said earlier, when there needs to be people working in the finance of it, in the marketing departments, in sales, stuff like that. And so there's always a way to find a path within your passion that might not be what is traditionally expected, and pursuing that might be equally rewarding. Now, it might not be, and that's okay. And in which case, you learn to, again, get knocked down, get back up, roll with the punches, and kind of pivot your path in order to closer fit what it is that you're truly passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And we'll talk about pivoting a lot more towards the end, especially in these times, right? All right, so now I want to move into speaking to the parents that may be in the audience. And as I said to you, I am a parent of 3 young children. So you've mentioned already a little bit of how your parents nurtured this entrepreneurial spirit. How did they nurture your interest in esports specifically?
When we were growing up, I think it was very interesting, the dynamic we had in the household, aside from the entrepreneurial aspects, being that our parents here in the cultivation of that environment in the first place. But specifically what I can think of is they never guided us towards a specific sport or a specific academic path, even towards pursuing success in academics in general. What they would tell us was, whatever you want to do, we will support you, so long as you give it your 100% to be the best in that field that you can be. So if you want to spend your whole life playing video games, that is completely okay. So if you truly have the dedication and the heart to give it everything you've got to be the best player basically the world has ever seen. And so with my sister, that came out through sports, and she would practice every day. For me, that tended to be more video games, technology type environments. So I would learn how to program and truly drive myself, which became invaluable once starting the company. Mm-hmm. And even with my younger sister, it's funny how all 3 of us went on completely different paths, and now she's pursuing completely creative and artistic talents. And I think that kind of embodies what it was that helped us growing up, is that no matter what it was we were pursuing, it was always about be the best you can be, and we'll let you do whatever it is you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll let you flourish, right? Create that environment again. What age were you when you started to participate in esports?
I mean, I've been playing video games since I must have been 5 or 6. As soon as I could get a Nintendo DS in my hands, I was playing video games. But I think when I started to realize esports was a lot more serious than just, playing video games, I must have been about 12 or 13, right around when I was coming out of into high school. Because around as well, my friends and us, we've been playing this game for enough time now that we're starting to I wonder if we can do anything with that.
All right, great. So as a parent, right, we really want to protect. Yes, you talked about supporting and nurture our children, but we also do protect them. And so there might be some perceptions of what esports is, right? And whether that's from just a general lack of knowledge and education or experience, it is our reality as a parent. How can children help their parents see a different point of view?
Well, I think first, parents in general should strive to maintain a general openness to a lot of different things, and that the world is constantly changing, and as technology also advances, who knows what tomorrow will bring. And so being open-minded to what the possibilities are is incredibly valuable. And specifically for understanding esports, I think primarily esports is an industry, just like sports is an industry. So if there are different paths, and even if parents aren't open to the idea of, I don't want you becoming a professional athlete, again, that's totally okay should that be an instance and a parent truly desires that, so long as they don't say, I don't want you getting involved in sports, because it's a bigger industry than that. Maybe they can write about sports because they love watching their favorite players, or they can interview people and start a podcast about sports. There's always different avenues. And I think rather than blocking off esports because it has the connotation of being associated with video games, even though there's, for some odd, unexplained reason, there seems to be a negative connotation among parents for video games, even though there's direct correlation between educational development and academic performance, along with video game, playing and esports competitiveness. I think it's about maintaining an openness to, if that's truly what someone's passionate about, allowing them to at least find a path there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great advice. And I'll share a personal story with you. When two years ago, when we did an esports activation at Valspar Championship, the PGA Tour, Dr. Harrell and I, while children were playing, we were spending the time educating parents, about what this space is and what the business opportunities are. So thank you for reinforcing that and opening everyone's eyes to the opportunities that are on there. If you look at the chat, there's a long list of some opportunities, all the business opportunities that Jordan has even mentioned, and some more. So please feel free. This is also a reminder, we'll open it up to Q&A. So if you do have some specific questions, please post in the chat and we will be sure to get to them. All right, so we've talked about high school students, administrators, and then we moved to parents. And now I want to go to collegiate students, right? You're a brand new college student, and from a faculty's point of view. And just this week, my first year graduate student was so impressed learning about you and how much you've accomplished so far. And he was so curious to find out, as a first year undergrad college student, how are you managing a business, your studies, and a social life?
I think what I do in terms of business is truly enjoyable, or else I wouldn't do it with the veracity and the vigor that I currently do it with, which is that if it was truly taxing to me and I didn't enjoy what I was doing, do it, but not for hours and hours on end, and I might drive myself insane. But that's not the case, because right now, at least what I do is very interesting to me. Personally, I love spontaneity and chaotic environments, and a lot of it is. It's creating different strategies. It's always evolving, and it's never the same, in that things might be repetitive in other occupational roles, and that you're saying the same thing over and over. And of course, I've done customer service and I've had to wear all the hats, so to speak. And that's inevitable. But along with wearing all the hats comes, okay, now that you've done customer service, turn around and you have to fix this bug on the platform through development. So you better know how to code. And then turn around, we have to work on our marketing strategy. And then let's look at this. Now we've got to take a look at finances. So almost being a jack of all trades, master of none keeps me interested consistently. And then it's basically a passion of mine. I enjoy what I do. It's fun. So in my free time, I don't mind doing these tasks. There are certainly times when I wish, oh, I really wish I didn't have to code right now, and I might have to. But a lot of it comes down to, I have the freedom to do as I want in terms of choosing the path and making things happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So being this jack of all trade, right? It's not just time management, but how have you, the priority management, how have you prioritized all those workloads, whether that's school, studies, getting back to a customer, fixing a bug? How have you prioritized the work?
I think a lot of it is an effort to remain effective in what I do. So whether it's through school or through business, when I do something, I try to really genuinely do it, to get it done. So instead of sitting and looking at a blank piece of paper, if I'm writing an essay, I know that I have to get this essay done. It's due at a certain time, much like I get this business task done to someone. So as soon as things comes up, I try to address them immediately. And then if I'm unable to do that, then I'll get them first chance. So and business are both a fantastic priority, and they also both offer learning opportunities. I mean, I've never taken a business class yet, and I still think that I would know a reasonable amount about what it takes to run a business just through experience alone. So I feel like it's almost another class I'm taking, and that I've got this live project that I have the fortune of working on. And so I'm just continuously learning always in both regards, academically and experientially.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, life lessons and all of it. So with that said, right, you're only a few months in, right, to your college experience. Have you shared your story or your journey yet with your faculty?
There are some cases in which I have. I feel like I try to almost avoid it if it doesn't come up, but there are times when I realize that it's invaluable to not bring it up. So, for example, in computer science especially, so as our newest public platform has been launching and growing in size, we've been having to optimize certain aspects of code and make things not just more functional, but add features that would even blow away any of our competitors right now. And, in order to do that, you really need a strong grasp of what's going on because nobody's done it before. You can't copy someone's code or base it off of what you've learned in a class because it's never been done before. And so sometimes I'll take my individual projects and I'll ask either a teaching assistant or a professor, hey, do you know how to do this or that? And they might be able to point me in the right direction or say, oh, I've never seen anything like this. What if you tried approaching it from this perspective? And they offer almost a level of mentorship and outside perspective that helps us achieve things that I don't think I'd be able to achieve otherwise.
Oh, great. Great. Thank you for that. So now I want to move into players, right? And so you talked to us when you first engaged in video games and then this e-sport. Are you still playing? Are you still competing?
Yes, I do. For one, it helps bring us all together. So most of the employees we have within the organization, of course, are passionate about esports. So we'll always have, team building exercises that are basically, let's all get together and just play and have fun and enjoy each other's company. And I think that helps people work together seamlessly outside of the actual playing component, because then you've developed, a real strong relationship with somebody and with a group of people. And a lot of esports actually builds team innovative thought processes, stuff like that. And then outside of that, hopefully I'll be able to also join the competitive team at Stanford University, where I hope to play some esport. Haven't decided yet, but I know that it's something I'm very passionate about. So I don't think I can lose that side of myself.
And do you have a favorite game?
As of right now, I don't think that I do. I like the variety. I like to always switch things up, try new things.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I've heard you say, by the players for the players. Can you explain to the audience what that means?
At the end of the day, I think one of the greatest concerns among millennials and Gen Z and the younger generation tends to be that large corporations are ignoring the sentiments of those who they hope to create for. And that's why I think we inherently have a competitive advantage. A lot of people might look and say, well, because he's a high school student or now a college student, he clearly doesn't have as much experience as a decades in the industry professional in sports management or as an executive. And while that is true, I don't have that level of experience. I do have other advantages that basically I just have to learn to play the game differently. And one of my greatest advantages is that nobody knows better than I do in this industry what a college student might want now, or what a high school student would want, because I was one. So you can sit down with a room of executives and look at as many polls and surveys as you like, but it will never be the exact same as being your own target demographic. And so having that level of experience and having that combined understanding of what it is people want, that's why we are, by the players for the players. I was an esports player and still am, and I think that's what lends us legitimacy, is that I genuinely could tell you all the different terms and jargon that the industry uses because I've experienced it firsthand. I play esports.
Mm-hmm. And Jordan, I love that you walk in there knowing what your value is, and the value prop that you bring to the table. So kudos to you. Okay, now we want to speak to the business partners, and you've weaved that in quite a bit, talking about your business and then the business in general. We've all been in the midst of this pandemic, right? And we've seen the rise of esports during the pandemic to even greater heights, right? It's been amplified in this virtual environment. How has your organization been impacted during this time?
So we've seen things that are both advantageous and disadvantageous, but overall, esports is most notably the most flexible sport, I believe, because of its nature of being able to be virtual. So you can host in-person events like a football game, but you can't host a virtual football game. You can still host virtual esports events. So not only has the popularity and engagement through the league and through our online platform Bracket has it skyrocketed, but also we've seen overall levels of growth through people who previously weren't interested, who are now trying to find new hobbies. Now that we're all literally locked up at home through quarantine, people want to remain socially engaged. And even athletes need some sort of outlet for competitive engagement with other people and relationships like that. And esports is a fantastic avenue through that. That's so easy to pick up and so much fun that I think that's what's contributed to its growth. But then on the disadvantage side, over the summer, we normally host our regional and national championship events in person. It's kind of a win-lose. While we weren't able to host it in person, it was truly a showcase of the versatility of the esports industry by being able to proceed anyways and operate them virtually.
All right, thank you for that insight. I do want to turn to our chat now and take a few questions from our audience. And so I saw Amanda's question on here. Thank you, Jordan, right, for your expertise, and she's so impressed by your drive. She's curious, for your business, what's been the biggest challenge you faced?
I have to say the biggest challenge I've faced is hitting a wall when there's truly nobody else who's done something before. So being a real trailblazer. And I think a lot of that has been in the programming sense, in that there's always a time or a place where someone can give you advice and say, in general, this is a better marketing strategy, or this has been done before. But we've got some really advanced programming going on now that has, quite frankly, never been done before. We've been implementing artificial intelligence too, in order to look at player statistics and performance and stuff like that, that never existed before. So there are projects that I can base it off of and say, this is how to build a neural network, and this is how to look at artificial intelligence in general. But the actual implementation of it, if I don't understand how something works and if our development team can't figure it out, we've hit a wall, because we can't find somebody better to do it for us because nobody's done it before. We are the best at doing it because we are the only ones doing it. And so being able to find different instances like that, those are definitely the biggest challenges, because then we have to stop and say, okay, let's really learn and sit down and see if we can throw stuff around until one of us can truly figure this out, because we're going to figure this problem out one way or another.
Mm-hmm. All right, great, hitting the wall. So we'll take one more from the chat. I saw Olivia's on there about these essential skills. So maybe for your organization, but the industry in general, what are the essential skills that are needed in the gaming industry?
An industry is very broad in that it depends what you're doing, and certain technical skills might vary. In that sense, though, essential skills within an industry are almost characteristics of what makes a successful person. So I think being driven is very important, and that's something there's no shortage of in the esports industry. Because unlike other industries where people might be drawn in solely for the allure of high compensation or financial reward, a lot of the esports industry is driven by people who are truly passionate about what they do, and that's something that's super unique about it. So being driven, being able to get back up when you're knocked down, because either you're competing in one form or another through actually playing against other teams, or you've got a business that's got competitors, or you're competing for the same job occupation as somebody else. You're always competing. So being able to hold yourself in competition, and when you lose, to not give up. If I had seen another competitor and said, oh, that already exists, I can't do it better, or there's nothing I could improve, then I wouldn't be where I am now. And if you were to lose a game and quit after you lost your first game, you would never be able to truly achieve greatness.
Well, thank you for that, Jordan. We appreciate your resilience, your courage, and your drive. And may you always play the game differently.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much.